Hey guys, it's Kevin, another movie for guys. Now, this movie reviewing, this is a movie that I was not at all looking forward to. I was definitely expecting this movie to be utter shit, but I was also a little bit optimistic because who was directing it, but let's just get into it. That movie is none other than Yoga Hosers. Let's just get in this movie because there really is a lot to talk about when it comes to this movie. Because, like I said, I really didn't have any sort of expectations going into it, but I wasn't at all looking forward to it. Like all the footage I saw from the trailers, just everything about it was not something that I was at all interested in or thought looked good in any way. And as it turns out, Yoga Hosers isn't a completely awful film, but it's pretty much it's definitely a pretty bad movie. Like there really is not that many things about Yoga Hosers that I really would recommend. It's not a complete fail, but it's pretty close, and it definitely is Kevin Smith's worst movie. Like I really don't know what he was thinking. Let's get to the plot of Yoga Hosers because the plot to this movie is very interesting. We focus on these two girls, Colleen M and Colleen C, and these two girls are obviously best friends. They run this convenience store shop, basically, that's also like a yoga place, and they also are constantly like, on their phones and things like that. And one night, their dad and his girlfriend go away on vacation, tell them that you have to work at this mart and everything. They want to go to this party, but they work at the mart. And that night, very strange happenings occur, and that's really all I'm going to say about Yoga Hosers, because I don't want to say anything else about this movie, because wow, is this movie strange. But let's just get into Yoga Hosers, starting off with the cast. Now, when it comes to the cast in this movie, they are really the one reason why I'm not going to completely shit on this movie, because I don't think the cast is terrible here. I don't think that they did a terrible job. I think that for the most part, not there were some good actors in here. Specifically, the two girls here, Lily Rose Depp and Harley Quinn Smith, I think actually try to give good performances. You can definitely tell that they're having fun with this movie. They're not trying to do anything that big. But I thought for the most part they did do a good job. Like their interactions were pretty fun together. Like I definitely had fun with them. I just absolutely hated everything about their characters. These are two characters who are about as stereotypical teenagers you can get. They hate everything. They don't like a lot of things. They're constantly on their phones and screaming about how much they need them. Just everything about them I just found to be very cliche teenagers. I really could not care about either of their characters, but they do try, so I definitely will give them credit. I think for the most part they definitely did try in this movie. It just really did not work at all. I get why Kevin Smith tried to cast his daughter. I think that they definitely have potential, just not in something like this, because really for me, so far at least, their characters are not working. And then we have Johnny Depp. Now, let me just say that I did not watch Johnny Depp's, in Tusk. I know that it's the same character he played in Tusk, and actually the girls are the same characters they played in Tusk as well. They were in Tusk briefly, and I actually really liked his character here. I thought he was actually really funny. He's like this book writer who gets shit on a lot, and his scenes actually did genuinely make me laugh. I thought that he was actually kind of funny. I like the direction they went with his character. He was really stupid at times and very cringy, definitely, but it was like a good kind of cringe. Like, it was cringe funny. I thought for the most part he did a good job. You could definitely tell that he was having fun in this role for the most part, and I actually did like him for the most part here. I didn't think that he was complete trash. I thought that he was actually one of the few things about the film that actually made me laugh, and his dynamic with the girls I thought actually worked for the most part. I like what they did with him, so I thought overall these three performances really did keep the movie from not being complete shit, because they really were not completely terrible. But now we'll get into the stuff that I really do want to talk about, because aside from those three actors, everyone else in this movie is pretty horrible. I really did not like the other performances here. Justin Long plays their yoga instructor who's like way into yoga. I found him to be very, very over the top. I don't really know what they were thinking with his character. Yogi Bayer just really did not work out at all. Really was not a fan of him, I have to say. Austin Butler, I don't know how this went wrong here, but Hunter Calloway I found to be so annoying. They take him in this really weird direction towards the end of the movie, and I really don't know why. I just thought overall he was a very weird character, as well as Adam Brody as Ichabod, someone who's like way too into drumming, really not well fleshed out at all. But by far the worst character in this movie, and someone that I really want to talk about, is Ralph Garman as Andronicus Arcane. Wow, was this character bad. And honestly, it didn't start off too horrible. He's their boss at the place that they work at, but then the third act of the movie happens and everything about his character gets thrown out the window. He goes in this extremely just out of place direction that I don't know what they were really thinking. I really don't know how this turned out the way it did, but it is a very, very strange performance that involves him quoting Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not going to spoil it, but just everything about him I thought was pretty terrible. I really was not a fan of his character, and I think that he is probably one of the worst things, but he's not the worst thing, but he's definitely one of the worst things about this movie, definitely. And then their parents, Tony Hale and Natasha Lyonne, I thought were okay. I don't really have a ton to say about them. I thought Tony Hale was okay as Colleen C's father. Natasha Lyonne was okay as, like, the seductive girlfriend, but other than that, really not much else to say about the cast. The cast here really didn't leave much of an impression on me besides those three. Of course, Ralph Garman did, but now we'll get into what I really want to talk about, which is the directing and the screenplay. So let's get to the directing here, because the directing in this movie, believe it or not, as cringy and ridiculous as it is actually directed by Kevin Smith, which I don't know what you were thinking here, which apparently Kevin Smith has admitted that he intentionally made this movie bad because he hated critics, so he made this movie bad, I guess, to condemn critics and subject them to this bullshit, but I really don't know what he was thinking. To me, that just seems like a poor excuse as to why this movie turned bad. I don't think he genuinely meant for this movie to be terrible, but it really is. The directing of this movie is all over the place. The tone is really bad. Sometimes the movie's really funny. Other times it turns into this horror film, and they do not at all go together. I really don't know how the directing turned out as bad as it did, but really rarely do the jokes work. Rarely did the movie make me laugh. Most times when the movie made me laugh is when I was making fun of it, and I really don't think Kevin Smith knew what he was doing when it came to the directing. And then the writing as well is also by Kevin Smith. Wow, is the screenplay bad. I mean, the screenplay is so annoying. The characters in this movie I found to be really, really just stereotypical and very annoying and very hard to root for. And as good as Lily Rose Depp and Harley Quinn Smith are, they can't even save this movie. I mean, their characters are so shallow. These are the kind of people who are, like, buried in their phones and think they're nothing without them. And I just found them to be really fucking annoying. I really was not a fan of their characters. And of course, we should mention, of course, that the villain in this movie is actually... But then we get to the villain in this movie, which, holy shit, the villain. I mean, I tried to keep this from you guys, but let's just say they watch a movie in their history class about these Nazi Canadians, basically, who essentially started going after all these different type of different plantations that they didn't like, and they burnt them down and things like that, and they didn't know where the soul went into. Well, it turns out the soul went into these bratwursts, and now we have the Bratzies, and their whole thing is about as ridiculous as you can imagine. There's only so far you could go with that, and there's already so many horrible Canadian jokes in the movie, which Kevin Smith really does not understand Canada. Like, this movie definitely shows Kevin Smith does not know what he's doing when it comes to Canada. I think the Canadian jokes, not a single one of them made me laugh. I thought they were all really silly and really just forced down your throats, and I really was not a fan of the jokes at all. I really did not find the Canadian jokes funny. But then we get to the Bratzies, and that's a completely different scenario. I mean, these are literally bratwursts that just say Nazi things, and for some reason Kevin Smith thought this was a funny idea. I'm willing to bet that he was high off his rocker. I mean, there's no way you can come up with this when you're not high as a kite. I don't know how someone just comes up with this, that's someone like Kevin Smith. It just doesn't seem like something that you can just come up with at a whim when you're not drunk or high. It just doesn't seem that way, but this entire thing was so ridiculous. I found it to completely take me out of the movie. And then when we get to the origin of how the Bratzies were done, I was just done. After that, the movie goes in a completely weird direction, and it's not even really that well paced, I have to say, because when the Bratzies are introduced, it's not till about 50 minutes in the movie, and the movie only has like 20 minutes left after that, and the pacing in this movie was really horribly done, I have to say, when it comes to the pacing. I think the pacing was so off to this movie. It takes about 40 minutes for stuff to actually happen. There's way too much exposition in this movie. I don't know why there was so much exposition, but for a while there's like nothing happening. They're getting their phones taken away, they work at their job, and there's just really not anything happening. And then when we build up to the Bratwursts, I found to be just so ridiculous. I don't really know what was going on there, and I really didn't think that any of that really worked that well. The cinematography was good until the Bratwursts showed up. After the Bratwursts showed up, this straight up felt like a sci-fi original Saturday film. Like, I don't know how this was a theatrically released movie. If I was Kevin Smith, I would, if this was a sci-fi, like, original Saturday movie, I wouldn't care that much. But this was a theatrically released movie that Kevin Smith, for some reason, approved. I don't really know what he was thinking here. But that's why I'm really shitting on this thing, because if it wasn't a theatrically released movie, then I wouldn't be as upset. I would expect it from sci-fi, and the fact that it wasn't that makes this movie 10 times worse. So, suffice to say, I really was not a fan of this movie. I really don't encourage you guys to see it. Maybe it's something that's fun to watch while you're high or you're drunk, because God knows Kevin Smith probably came up with it while he was high or drunk. But either way, not at all a fan of this movie. I really did not think that it was that bad. It was that great. Nothing terrible. Nothing like outright terrible that upset me. I mean, the third act in this movie is one of the worst third acts I've seen. I definitely will say that. But other than that, it's really not something that's all that memorable. It's still something that I really did not like. And apart from some good performances, I really can't recommend this movie anymore. But when it comes down to it, I was going to give this movie an F. But again, an F to me is a movie that really has to affect me and makes me want to turn it off, and that really was only the third act of this movie. Other than that, I just found this movie to be something that was very, very forgettable, that was pretty bad, and that Kevin Smith really, I don't really know what he was thinking here, but when it comes down to it, I am going to give Yoga Hosers a 1 out of 5 or a D-. But anyways, guys, remember, Yoga Hosers, let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. I really don't know what else to say about this movie. One of the strangest movies I've seen in a while, for sure. If you guys enjoyed it, okay, I completely understand it, but that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for another movie review, which is a movie that I've been wanting to see for such a long time, and I am so happy to finally review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.